Archbishop Kwong, Headmaster Mr. Ronnie Chang, members of the school committee, teachers, boys, parents, ladies and gentlemen. I'm greatly honored to be asked to address the school on this speech day, which takes place during the 150th anniversary celebrations of the Diocesan Boys' School. I had no hesitation in accepting the honor when it was first broached by my old friend K.K. Pang, followed by a telephone call and formal invitation from the headmaster. Today is bound to be important and memorable for all present, but I wonder whether it will exceed, for me, the same exhilaration and, in a curious way, the pride I felt when I was last invited here. It was speech day, as you've heard. That took place on the 13th of January, 2012, also a Friday. The headmaster then was Mr. Terence Chang. Beside me included many of the same people as today: Mr. Justice K.K. Pang, the Honorable Tommy Cheung, Mr. Tommy Cheung, Mr. Rin Lee, Reverend Ross Royden, the Very Reverend Samson Fan, Mr. Martin Tam, and of course, Madam Justice Yun. When it was announced that the headmaster to succeed Mr. Chang to become the 10th headmaster of DBS was Mr. Ronnie Chang, the whole hall, and especially the boys, erupted in harmonious celebration of this announcement. I was completely taken aback by the sheer joy and exuberance of this. For me, it said a lot about the headmaster, of course, but even more about the school and its character. DBS is one of the great schools, and not just in Hong Kong. If one needs evidence of this, ask any old boy, ask anyone present today, and remember that Mr. Chang, Mr. Ronnie Chang, was shortlisted in 2017 as one of the top 50 educators in the prestigious Global Teacher Prize. Now, the Global Teacher Prize is an annual prize of $1 million given by the Varkey Foundation, awarded to teachers worldwide who have made significant contributions to education. It has often been referred to as the Nobel Prize in teaching. It is natural on a day like today to reflect a little on what the school has in real terms given its students. Those who have graduated or about to will, of course, always retain their personal memories of this enchanted place on Kadoorie Hill, with its buildings surrounded by fruit trees, orange, lemon, rose apple trees, acacias, and the Honduras mahogany and bauhinia trees. It is timely to reflect because you will enter an inevitably exciting stage in your life, and however much you will have enjoyed your stay here, time moves forward. Even if you return to the school, it will never be the same as when you attended as a student. So, apart from your memories, what will you be taking with you? Out of all stages of one's education, arguably the most important is the secondary school phase. This is because the adolescent years of one's life are the formative years. Whenever I am asked the age I think I started becoming the person I am today, I settle on when I was 15. It will be the same, give or take a few years, for the rest of you. It is a truism that the person who emerges from a secondary school is a better and more confident person than the person who first enters it. This is what education is about, and the most important part of one's education, in my view, takes place at secondary level. A society works in practice as a combination of a number of connected factors involving economics, social mores, politics, and law. At the center of these factors is education, hence the important position it occupies or should occupy in any community. The simple truth is that everyone can be educated because, as the famous science fiction writer H.G. Wells wrote in 1932 in a little-known book called the work, wealth, and happiness of mankind. He said this: if it were not so, the loosely knit world community which already exists would be impossible. So back to the question I posed earlier. As you leave DBS, what is it you take with you? What are those qualities that the school has tried to teach you to make you a better man, for it is men that you will become? And for those of you yet to look forward to finishing in the future, what will you gain? Well, for some, you take away concrete, tangible achievements. And today being speech day, there are achievements and prizes aplenty. For many of you, you will also be looking forward to university life, whether in Hong Kong or abroad. These prizes and achievements are doubtless the result of hard work and hard graft, and you and your parents are, of course, to be warmly congratulated. I do not wish to minimize the importance of these achievements, particularly on a day like today, but in a sense, they are relatively fleeting, and their importance may diminish with each year that comes and goes. After all, there will always be fresh challenges to meet, not least as you try to find your rightful place in the community, and past achievements may not always help you in these respects. I want to spend a few minutes dealing with some facets that last throughout your life and that will most probably define the person you become. They will for sure help you as you meet the challenges to which I have earlier alluded. I have 4 matters to mention. I call them the basics of life. I mention only 4, there are more. First, discipline, industry, and perseverance. School is not just about learning specific skills, whether these skills are intellectual, like the subjects taught such as the sciences, history, and music, or are extracurricular, like the many sports which take place here. Common to the learning of such skills is the discipline of trying to achieve competence at least, and excellence as the ultimate goal. Perfection, as we all know, is unattainable, but one tries to do the best one can. It is facile to urge someone to do his or her best. How often do you hear someone say to you, "Oh, just do your best"? But it is more difficult to advise that person as to how one reaches this goal. For me, this is done through discipline and industry, skills for life learned from school. Perseverance comes into it, because as sure as you will have your share of happy times, you're also likely to experience disappointment, sometimes even heartbreak. This is readily demonstrated in a school by a simple example. Some come top of the class, others do not. Some attain what they set out to do, and others do not. Your own headmaster has in the past talked about accepting losses and disappointments and dealing with this by seeking to improve oneself. He says resilience is needed. I agree, and would only add to this the quality of perseverance. Those words, next to the iconic rock on the south side of the field, Mok Sek One So, capture this first basic precisely. Secondly, the importance of respect. I'm not referring in this context to self-respect as such, for I expect all of you to have at least that. Rather, I'm here emphasizing the importance of respect for others. It is this that provides the litmus test to evaluate the success of a society. Conceptually, it is akin to tolerance, but it goes much further. A respect for the rights and liberties of others is the fulcrum on which an ideal and harmonious society is balanced. It provides the surest measure of how the success of a society can empirically be gauged. Now, this is not some vague concept or some idealistic statement which bears no resemblance to the real world. Even by a casual observation of our own community and what goes on within it, we can see just how relevant the concept of mutual respect really is. But this is, to borrow the words of Jane Austen, a truth universally acknowledged. I'll start with the Charter of the United Nations. This charter was created in 1945 in the immediate aftermath of the Second World War. The charter is the foundational treaty of the United Nations. It came into force in October 1945 after being ratified by the then 5 permanent members of the United Nations, being China, France, Russia, the United Kingdom, and the USA. Now, the Charter has as its object to practice tolerance and live together in peace with one another's good neighbors. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which was adopted by the General Assembly of the United Nations in December 1948, says in Article 1 that all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. They are endowed with reason and conscience and should act towards one another in a spirit of brotherhood. The preamble to the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, which is known as the ICCPR, again adopted by the General Assembly of the United Nations in December 1966, refers to the recognition of the inherent dignity and of the equal and inalienable rights of all members of the human family, this being the foundation of freedom, justice, and peace in the world. The constitutional document applicable to Hong Kong is the Basic Law. In Chapter 3 are set out the fundamental rights and duties of the residents of Hong Kong, and these include themes common in other documents, those documents I've referred to earlier: equality, access to justice, freedom of conscience and religion, freedom of speech, and so on. The ICCPR is expressly stated to be applicable in Hong Kong, and its provisions are contained in the Hong Kong's Bill of Rights. The foundation of these provisions is the notion of the respect, not only for one's own rights and liberties, but also an equal respect for the rights and liberties of others. The provisions of the Basic Law, as its preamble states, reflects the basic policies of the PRC towards Hong Kong. Respect for others is ingrained in the ethos of DBS. It is reflected in the teamwork that is essential in achieving any degree of success, and this school has certainly had its share here, in activities such as music and sports, among others. Respect for others cannot be taught, but a school puts its students in a position where this is ingrained as part of the culture of the place. The last sentence of that illuminating, excellent book about the history of DBS, simply called To Serve and to Lead by Feng Yuang and Ms. Chan Yeung. This book refers to a hope that the school, this is the last page of the book actually, refers to a hope that the school will continue to provide a spirituality of compassion to love all men neath the sun. Dignity, honor, and courage have always been the hallmarks of the school. To this you can add respect. This leads me to the third basic, service to the community in which we live and work. This does not require much elaboration, but I will say this. The history of DBS has spanned the course of Hong Kong's own history. Major events, some of which have been catastrophic, like the Great War and the Second World War, have seen courageous men from the school devote their lives to Hong Kong. The long list of distinguished alumni is a testament to the public service given by members of the school. It is part of your culture. How fitting, therefore, is the title of the book I've quoted from earlier, To Serve and to Lead. The fourth basic is the ability to laugh and to have fun. This is a part of life and represents happiness. There is nothing wrong with having fun and enjoying life. A sense of humor can even be said to be essential. It has certainly pulled me through many of the challenges I have faced. This is yet another characteristic ingrained in DBS boys, and I know many of you. I can best illustrate the sense of humor of this school by quoting a passage from To Serve and to Lead. There is a part of the book recounting reminiscences of old boys. Mr. Jacqueline Lai, an old boy who was in a class of 1955 and who served as the headmaster of this school for 17 years from 1983 to 2000, he gives this recollection modestly not about himself, but about Professor Lo King Man. He says this: when Lo King Man was studying for his school-leaving examination at DBS, he entered music as an additional subject. To take music as an examination subject, there was a requirement that the candidate must name an instrument for his practical test. Lo King Man chose the French horn. Hong Kong in the mid-50s was known as a cultural desert. There was no city hall or a professional orchestra. The education department, in the absence of an examination authority, eagerly looked for a qualified French horn examiner. Finally, the conductor of the police band was recommended and invited by the education department to be the examiner. This gentleman wrote back to thank the director and mentioned in his letter that he actually knew of a better qualified French horn examiner, and that person was none other than Lo King Man himself. I like this passage. It is a witty way of reminding us of the musical accomplishments of the school. The lamps of these basics in life, as I've called them, that mark what I believe to be the lasting legacy of your school, are passed down from generation to generation of students here at DBS, and they will illuminate your lives. In many respects, this school is outstanding, but what makes it a truly remarkable institution is that you leave it a far richer person than when you entered it. And this is precisely because of those basic tools in life that the school has provided for you. You may not even realize this until much later in your life. But at least remember this: as Plutarch, the famous Greek essayist and historian, said, what we achieve inwardly will change outer reality. This is both a gift and a responsibility, and I hope you will remember the basics long after you've forgotten this speech. You owe it to yourself, your community, your children, and their grandchildren. Once again, I congratulate the wonderful achievements of the prize winners today, and indeed every DBS student, and I thank the school for allowing me to say these few words. I wish the school and all its students and staff the very best in the future, and congratulate you all on celebrating 150 years of a magnificent history. Thank you. I'm still not getting off the stage because there's something I wish to do, and which is just to present a small souvenir from the Court of Final Appeal, which I've written somewhat illegibly, but I'd like to present this to the Archbishop and also to the headmaster, if I may.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are so grateful for the Chief Justice's generous gift to DBS. Incidentally, we have also prepared a little surprise for him also. In Chinese, there's a term called, I think in English, loosely translated as a beautiful misunderstanding, 一個美麗的誤會. I think in the Hong Kong community, there's a general assumption that our Honorable Chief Justice is a graduate from DBS. In fact, he grew up in the UK and never attended DBS. It would have been a real privilege for us had he gone to school at DBS on this hill. But since he cannot graduate here, we resort to the second best option. We have prepared the armor for the Chief Justice and Madam Justice. This is the school tracksuit that all school team members wear. I've been told that these tracksuits have magical powers. In the future, if you have tough battles to fight, don this jacket and it will assist you. Thank you so much again, Chief Justice.
Apart from thanking the school, just to correct that part, that yes, I've heard the rumor that that went around saying that I was at DBS. In fact, the truth is, as I told the headmaster just before we came into the room, I would very dearly wish that I was a student here. It would have been a great pride for me.